Guys, you want stuff. Stuff costs gold, so you need a lot of gold. To get gold, you're going to need books. I'm going to teach you how to get so many books, you're going to think you're living in a freaking library. Let's go. Alright guys, so first we're going to talk about what to do with books when you have them to sell. In general, the way you should be selling everything, particularly those gold chests that are worth a ton of gold, is by going to the vendor, either equipment vendor, material shop, whichever one you want to go to, and selling it. So if I go here, I click sell, I go to miscellaneous, here's my gold books. So say I want to sell all these SSR gold books, I'm going to get 675,000 and click sell, but I don't want to do that because you may notice I don't have the selling buff. So you should never sell stuff like this without having the 20% selling buff that you get from Veronica. And so I'll show you how to do that. Basically, you go to the tavern, you're going to invite Veronica to the tavern, give her a gift, and then she's going to give you a buff that gives you 20% extra gold. So click invite Veronica. It's free the first time. She doesn't stay there forever, so usually just do this when you're ready to sell it, sell your stuff. And if you need it again that day, you can't do it more than once for free each day. Now after you invite her, she doesn't show up right away, so you need to go back into a town and then come back into the tavern and then she'll be there. So the idea is, invite her, we'll get the buff, then we'll sell all of our stuff. And if you're not doing this, this can make a pretty big difference. If you're like me, I like to save up my gold books and sell them all at once. I guess just because I like seeing bigger numbers or whatever. But anyway, I do. Maybe it's also because then I don't have to invite Veronica as often. So when you talk to her, she asks you some questions. Doesn't really matter what you say, but the point is she's going to get to this screen where she tells you what she wants. She wants this strawberry thing. This will change over time. If you don't have it, you can just get the materials and cook it, or if you're in a pinch, you can even just go buy the thing that she wants from the material shop. So give it to her, and she'll say okay. She gives you a little bit of gold, but then what she really gives you that's important is this 20% gold buff. And in case you're curious, you can see the buffs on you if you go to player info, click on buff. These are a list of all the buffs that are active on your character right now. So as you can see, we're in an event right now that gives decreased stamina. Oops. And then here's the 20% gold buff. So we're going to go back to that same vendor. We're going to sell the books, and you're going to see that now we get 20% more gold. So I just thought I would put this in here. I've got some comments from several people who didn't know about this. This is super important in terms of keeping your gold income up. So I wanted to put this in here. Even though it's not 100% related to book farming, it is related to gold, getting your gold up. So just thought I would add this in the video. So now we're going to go back to the vendor. We're going to sell those same books, and what we'll see is, let's see, sell, miscellaneous. So now we're getting 800,000. So you can see right here it indicates on this little sub button, there's the 20% buff. We're going to get 20% more. Alright, so that's sort of introduction. We're going to get into the main topic of today, which is book farming, how to do it fast, how to do it efficiently. So let's jump into it. Alright, so gold is really important in this game. You guys already know that, I'm sure. You need it for upgrading your characters by awakening. You need it for upgrading your equipment, which is also super important. You need it for a bunch of stuff. And the best way to get gold in these events like we have going on this weekend is by book farming when the Fort Sulcur's levels are on half stamina. So they're not quite on half stamina today. They're going to start tomorrow. Thought I would get this video out here so you guys could get an idea and start planning out how you're going to do it. It doesn't really matter which color you farm. You can do the green evolve level, you can do the red evolve level, or you can do the blue evolve level. We're going to talk about some of the benefits and drawbacks of doing each of those, and I'll tell you which one is going to work out the best and which one is going to work out the worst. Here's a clue, it's not going to be the blue one that we're going to do. So we'll go into that. We'll talk about which types of characters are the strongest, which type of units you're going to be wanting to take, in terms of being damage dealers, in terms of being sub-units and support units, and we're going to talk about general strategy in terms of what you want to be thinking about. So the reason this is important is that it's sort of a limited window when we have these half stamina events. And so when we do, if you have some stamina potions saved up, you want to be able to spend as many of those stamina potions as you're wanting to spend in as short amount of time as possible before that half stamina event ends. So the focus of the video today is going to be what types of teams are going to be the most reliable and the fastest in terms of clearing these levels and giving you the most gold per hour, so you can cram as much gold as you can into these events while things are on half stamina. So what we're going to do is generally we're going to be doing the 6th floor level because that gives us the best rewards. You can see what the rewards are here. Basically it's just books. You get 5-star books, 4-star books, and 3-star books. Every so often when you fill up these bars, you'll get a bonus 5-star book, so that's going to add to your income. Once we have these books, like we talked about, you can't sell books, unfortunately, through the village sell screen. So unfortunately the 20% gold buff we talked about does not apply to books. The way you sell them is just through your equipment menu here. They show up here. You just click sell, and here we'll go down to where my books are. Let's see. Ingredients. Alright, so here's the books. So you don't really need to keep a whole lot of books unless you have a bunch of units that you're trying to level up at the same time. So usually I'll sell most of what I have, and you get pretty decent gold for it. So for a stack of 99 books, you'll get a little over 1 million gold. This actually adds up pretty quickly. We're going to talk about how to do these runs quickly. Each run you do on a book level at the highest level, which is level 6, is going to net you on average about 19,000 gold worth of books and about 2,400 gold worth of actual gold rewards. So in terms of the rewards, most of the gold income on book farming is coming from the books, not from the gold. So you may hear it called gold farming, but really all the value here is going to be concentrated in these books. So you can see how this adds up pretty fast. I can just click some stacks and I can get 10, 12 million gold pretty fast. So that's the idea. We're going to talk about which levels to farm, we're going to talk about which units are the best, and we're going to talk about some gotchas that can really mess up your overnight farming and some things you want to avoid. So in general, when we do these book levels, we're going to try to use units that give us the color advantage. In terms of if we're doing the green level, we're going to use red units. If we're doing red level, we're going to use blue units. If we're doing blue level, we're going to use green units. Just to get that 20% bonus damage to try to clear them as fast as possible. In general, the way that these book levels are set up is the fastest you can clear them is in 3 turns. When we say 3 turns, a turn would be your 3 units playing their 3 cards. So the perfect sort of ideal clear that we'd be going for would be a 3-turn clear where all of your units kill all of the bad guy units in 1 turn without the enemy ever getting to attack. The reason you can't do it any faster than that is because most of these levels, the first wave is 4 units, but only 3 appear at a time. So even if you can one-shot all those 3 units, there's going to be a 4th unit that drops down that you're going to have to kill by itself before you can move on to the final wave. In the red level and in the green level, the final wave is going to be an AoE wave, meaning that there's going to be multiple enemies you need to kill. In the blue level, the final wave is going to be 1 single target boss, and you can see that by clicking on this little magnifying glass. So in the blue wave, this is the dragon that you're going to face, single target. A lot of people think that makes the blue level faster to farm. We're going to talk today about how that's actually not true, and that the fastest level to farm in general is actually going to be the red book level. We'll talk about why that is and what units you want to take. So you can click on this, you can see what they are. This is the guy we're going to be fighting on the red level. He's going to have 2 little allies with him. You can see the same thing for the green level. The green is also an AoE. It's going to be this fairy person, Sidria. So obviously the colors of the final wave are going to correspond to the color of the book that we're farming, and that's going to tell us what type of units we're going to want to take with us. So like I said, our focus is going to be getting through these levels as quickly as possible, which means most of the time our our focus is going to be using units that can do the most amount of damage as quickly as possible. There are kind of two different ways to think about this. One is for speed and one is for reliability and consistency. We always want to make sure that we're doing things in a way that's reliable and consistent, because book farming, the advantage of book farming is that it doesn't fill up your equipment. So you can put book farming on auto repeat for a long time, and it's not like farming boss stages or farming free stages where you're going to be limited because once your equipment fills up it won't go anymore. With books, it fills up your items, but you have a lot of item storage and these stack in stacks of 100. So you can book farm on auto for quite a long time before it fills up and you have to do anything with them. So because of that, what we want to do is pick a team that's going to give us the very consistent and reliable clear. We don't want to put this on thinking it's going to be running for 3 hours, and turns out we come back 3 hours later and it only ran for 10 minutes because we lost a battle. Because as soon as you lose, it's going to stop auto farming. So what we want to do is, first priority is going to be do something that's going to win every single time, very consistently. Second priority is going to be do something that wins very quickly, so we can get in as many of these battles as we can, while these events are on half stamina. If you're having survivability issues, we're going to talk about two types of subslot units today. One type of subslot unit is going to help with survivability, so that's going to help us with the consistency of our runs. The other type of subslot unit that we're going to be talking about is going to help with our damage, which is going to increase the speed of our clears. So if you're having issues with survivability, the most important thing again is that you can do this consistently. So don't worry about getting your damage up if you can't even win 100% of the time. First, focus on getting your levels up and your gears up so that you can win 100% of the time. Even if it's not super fast, you need it to be consistent. And then the second priority would be, once you can do that, then we'll talk about some units that you're going to sub in that's going to increase your damage and speed up your runs. Alright, so we're going to start off looking at sort of a general farming tier list, and then we'll talk about specifically on each of the 3 book levels what units are going to be the best choices. So in general, the king of farming is Red SSR Hauser. He's got Pierce, he's got Sever on his ult, he's got all AoE abilities, he's pretty much everything that you want in a farmer. Load him up with some SSR gear with Pierce substats and you'll pretty much be good to go. Next down from Hauser, almost as good I would say, is green Liz Hawk and blue Winehide. These are both pretty good for different reasons. Green Liz Hawk is an interesting unit. She adds actually a lot of different things to the team. So she adds a little bit of survivability through her passive, which adds HP related stats, which will actually give your team some lifesteal. So she'll add a little bit of survivability if there's a level that maybe you're not quite clearing without her. Throw her in there. She might help you with a little bit of sustain. She also decreases defense on her single target skill, and her AoE skill is just standard AoE damage. She does have a single target ult, which isn't 100% optimal, but overall she's a great choice. Winehide, also very good. Not really sure if that's how you say his name. His passive adds Pierce each turn. That's a pretty decent passive. The goal is going to be to do these runs really fast in 3 turns or a few more. And so we're really not going to have a whole lot of rounds for him to stack that passive, but it is good. He has 2 AoE skills, which is really what we're looking for here. He has an attack block skill, which if for whatever reason you can't 1-turn kill a wave, his attack block can actually make it super fast. If he blocks all the enemy attack skills and all they had were attack skills, they'll basically just skip their turn, saving you some time. Moving down to the good list, we'll start with blue Deanne here. Some would say, well, she's pretty much as good or better than green Liz Hawk. I think that's true in terms of her skills alone. She has an AoE ult and an AoE second skill. She doesn't have that passive though that that Liz Hawk brings to the team. So she's a great choice. I would put her, maybe almost as good or even as good as the really good tier. But I, put her down here just because she doesn't quite bring that same utility from Liz Hawk's passive. Green Bond is a great unit. The reason he's not rated higher is, this is Green Coin Shop Bond, the reason he's not rated higher is because the way the AI uses him is it uses his snatch every single frickin' turn. That means every turn you have, one of your 3 skills is going to be debuffing the enemy. Somehow the AI is like crazy in love with debuffs, and if it's just going to use that debuff. So you're going to lose basically 1/3 of your cards to that debuff being applied. That being said, he's still a really good unit, you know, if you're farming blue level. He's pretty good, which we'll talk about in a second. And overall, he's a pretty good choice. If you're struggling with survivability on a level, his Snatch debuff can actually be pretty good because that's going to reduce the attack of the enemies, giving you a little bit more sustain. Red Golder is pretty good. He's got AoE on his first skill. He's got the rank up on his second skill, which doesn't get used a ton by the AI. When it does, sometimes it's in really awkward ways, but overall he's pretty good. His ult is AoE, which is awesome. His passive stacks really nicely if you're able to one-turn all the waves. So if he doesn't take any damage, he's going to give a stacking 10% attack buff each turn that the fight goes on where he doesn't take damage. So we'll talk about in a little bit is if you can one-turn farm, if you can do 3-turn clears, which is to say you're not taking any damage from the enemies, that's going to make him a lot more effective than if you're in a long, drawn-out 5-6 turn fight where he's not going to be able to stack that passive. We talked about Blue DN already. She's great. She's super OP, especially her ult is really good if you have it leveled up. Just use her. Blue Gila is pretty good. We're going to talk about one application where she is super good. In general, she's pretty good. One of her skills is a heal, so depending on the draw, she may not get a ton of good utility, but again, we're looking for fast clears, and so on the first and second turn, she's either going to have 1 or 2 plays, which is going to be good. Her passive can stack ult bubbles, which is also really nice. Jericho is an okay choice. Her passive is not really going to get to stack that much because she won't be playing very many cards before we finish clearing these levels. So she's not going to get that super buffed crit chance, but at the same time her damage is pretty decent with the weak point skill 1. She is going to be a pretty good choice on the Blue Book stage, which we'll talk about in a minute. So overall, not the strongest farmer because of her single target attacks, but not too bad either. Green Gill Thunder is kind of the same way. His attacks hit like a noodle, but not any noodle. This would be a noodle that you left out in the sun, so it's kind of old, maybe a little moldy, and then it rained on it, so now it's wet. So if you want a unit that hits like a wet noodle, he's a good choice. All joking aside, his buff is okay, and his ult actually does a lot of damage. So we'll talk about how to use him on the Blue Book level for some okay results. Blue Golder is the last one we have listed here. He's in the okay tier. He does debuff and then weak point, both on AoE. Really the main reason he's here is that he has those 2 AoE attacks. So you can really farm with any unit that you have built up in the game. The only ones I've listed here are ones that have particular good abilities that are going to help you in different ways. That's not to say that if a unit's not on here, it's not going to be good. That's absolutely not true. You can take any unit and be successful, and we're going to talk about team building here in a minute and what types of units you would want to pair together to do really well when you're farming. Okay, so we talked about general speed farming. Now we're going to look specifically at the Blue Book level. Now the Blue Book level is unique because it's the only one of the 3 book farming levels that has a single target final wave, which is that big dragon thing who spits crap at you, and you know what I'm talking about. Alright, so the challenge with the Blue Book level is we have a split between AoE on the first wave and a need for single target damage on the second wave. In addition, there's not really that many really good green units that can stack, because what we really would like is a unit that has all AoE attacks on skill 1 and skill 2, but a single target ult. And there's really none of those in the game right now. There may be some coming later. The closest there are is either Bon and Green Lizhawk. So Green Lizhawk almost fits that criteria perfectly. She does have only 1 single target skill and 1 AoE skill, but the single target doesn't hurt you too much because, like we talked about earlier, the first wave is a 4-unit wave with 3 slots. So that means even if you one-shot all the 3 units you see on the screen first, that 4th unit is going to drop down and it's going to have to take 2 turns no matter how strong your attacks are. So what that means is you really want to eliminate 1 unit on your first turn. If you take 2 turns and kill all the units on your second turn, now you're going to be forced to take a 3rd turn on the first wave. So ideally what you want to happen is the first wave you want to kill 1 unit, weaken the other 2. On your second turn, the 4th unit's going to fall down. You're going to try to clear all 3 of them and then move on to the second wave, which is the boss. Unfortunately, that is very difficult to do 100% of the time because of RNG and because of the fact that, like I mentioned, there's no green unit that has 2 AoE skills that makes him a really good farmer and has a really good single target ult. So what you see here is kind of a list of compromises. I think Green Lizhawk is the best choice as a first choice. The challenge is, you know, we don't want to have too many single target damagers or we're going to slow down on the first wave, but we need some single target damage for the boss. So it's going to be a little bit of a compromise. Some good combinations would be Green Liz Hawk with like a Bond and a Jericho. Surprisingly, Guild Thunder actually works okay on this one. He does not hit very hard, but if you were to pair him with like a Green Liz Hawk and a Jericho, it's actually not that bad. Green King isn't listed on here, but he's actually supposed to be listed on the really good tier. Green King may actually be better than Jericho on this fight, because once she plays her bleed and that unit dies, if you don't draw another bleed, but you do draw another one of her weak point attacks, it's not likely that it's going to one-shot the mobs. So I would use Green King before Jericho, but any of these will work well together. The reason Guild Thunder's on the really good tier, his ult is really good and can almost one-shot the boss. Green Bond from the coin shop is going to run into the same thing we talked about earlier. He's good, but the AI is always going to use that Snatch. The Snatch doesn't deal any damage. All it's going to do is buff his one attack card, and so it's kind of like wasting 1/3 of your turn on the first turn. That's going to slow you down. It's going to make it less likely that you're going to kill one of those bad guys on the first turn, which you really need to do to 3-turn Blue Book. Under the good tier, we've got Red Hauser. Red Hauser has a color disadvantage, so he's not the first choice. That being said, he's not bad. He doesn't have the single target AoE. He doesn't have a single target attack on the ult, but he does have both AoE skills on his skill 1 and skill 2. Blue Gale is the same idea. She's okay. She doesn't have the color advantage, but she does have Ignite on her first skill, and if she can get ult by the time you get to the boss, it's not going to probably one-shot the boss, but it will put the Ignite on him and help some of your other ults. Winehide is the same idea. He kind of fits the criteria that we talked about in terms of having 2 AoE skills and a single target ult. He doesn't have the color advantage, so he's not the strongest here, but he's not bad. Green Merlin is not bad, but again, at that point she doesn't have AoE. She does have only 1 attack skill. Her ult is really good, but it's kind of all she brings. So which combination of these you would use would really depend on which units you have. We'll talk about what subs you would want to run, but if I had to run Blue Book, which I would prefer not to, but if I had to, I would take something like Green Liz Hawk, either Jericho or Green King, and then either a Green Bond or a Green Guild Thunder. The other thing I'll say about the Blue Book level is that if your team is not quite strong enough, or if you get a bad draw, this is the book level that's most likely to make you fail, because that dragon has this stupid fire crap, and if he ults, you're going to have a bad time if you're, kind of beginning at your book farming career. So I would say if you can 100% clear it, it's not a bad option. If you can 100% clear it, you can probably also 100% clear some other levels, which are going to be a better choice, and I'll talk about the reason why here in a minute. Alright, so next we're going to talk about the Green Book level. The Green Book level is in general going to be a lot safer and a lot more consistent than the Blue Book level. It doesn't have any kind of killer abilities that will one-shot you like the silly dragon boss. It could be a little slower, and we'll talk about why the Red Book level is actually my favorite one, and in my opinion the most efficient and safest to run. But if for whatever reason the units that you have built up in the game all happen to be red, this could be a pretty good option. If you find that you run the red a little bit and run the green a little bit, and you can run the green faster or more consistently, absolutely do the green. There's not a ton of units that I've put on the tier list here because, like I said, there's really not a ton of special, really good units that give special capabilities on this particular level. Hauser and Gother are going to be by far the best. If you have those, definitely use them. I would probably put them with a Liz Hawk and just go to town on that. If you can 3-turn Green Book consistently, it's going to be a great option. Like I said, you can really do this with any sequence of red units. If you're having survivability issues, stick around because I'm going to talk about what to use in your sub slot that's going to help you with that. If you can almost clear them, but not quite, get it in 3 turns, also stick around because I'm going to talk about what sub units that'll give you a little bit of a damage boost. So again, these 3 units are going to be the top all-stars, but really any red unit can do it. Green Book is kind of the safe middle ground. Alright, you made it. We've arrived at the Red Book level. If you have these units that I've listed up here, you need to be farming Red Book level. No questions asked. I made another video about why this team of these 3 units is so ridiculously overpowered, at blazing through and completely destroying the red book level. Take a look if you're interested in seeing the details about the synergy of this team. But if you have these units, use them, put Green Merlin in the sub, and just laugh. Just watch it. Just watch it and laugh. You'll laugh in the face of their destruction. Profit. Take their books from their corpses and sell them. Grind their bones into dust. Okay, you get the idea. So obviously Hauser is going to be the best. He doesn't have color advantage, but he is color equal. Gila's going to have color advantage here. She's going to add the Ignite. She has the AoE. She's really good. Gother's going to stack his passive because the idea is we're going to one-turn each of these waves. It's going to, in general, be the most consistent 3-turn clear out of any of these colors in terms of the blue, red, or green book farming stages. If you don't have these units and you can't make this particular team, or if you find that you're not able to one-turn the red book, just play around with different types of blue units that you do have, or red units that you do have. We've kind of talked about what characteristics you would want to be looking for in a unit, so anything that you happen to have build up that has either good damage or good AoE damage is going to be fine. You know, red book isn't too difficult. Really, which one is faster between red and green is going to depend on which team you have available and which characters you have built up. There's not really one rule of thumb. Again, if you have this team, you want to use this team. If you don't have this team, I would play around with it a little bit. Now we're going to talk about what do you want in your sub slot. Okay, so typically the first choice for a sub slot is going to be something that's going to increase your damage and speed up your runs. There's going to be two types of ways you can do that. The first is if you're having trouble one-turning these waves, you want to pick something that's going to increase your damage. Something like a red Jericho, a green Alio, I can't freaking say his name, Alioni, whatever. This dude with the helmet, green Alioni, you know what I'm talking about. Okay, so those are going to increase your attack and attack-related stats. That's going to make it more likely that you can one-turn the wave. Again, they apply to their own color, so if you're using a red team on a green level, Jericho is going to help. If you're using a green team on a blue level, Alioni is going to buff the green units. If, however, you find that you can already one-turn these waves, I would say that actually the best sub-slot is Merlin. She doesn't give you any additional damage, but she does start you out that one ult bubble, and that actually makes a pretty big difference because it usually, not always, but usually means that one of your units is going to have their ult ready by the time you get to the final wave, and if you have an AoE ult, that pretty much means game over. And I'll show you some examples of that here in a second. But I would use those as my first three choices. Weinheit, they're really good. He's not bad. Like I said earlier, he's going to stack Pierce every turn. But like I said earlier, you really don't want the fight to go on long enough where that stacking Pierce is going to add up to be big gains. So, I mean, use them if you have a long drawn-out fight and you don't have anything better. But I would probably pick one of these top three first. Death Pierce, I mean, I would maybe put him on the same level as Weinheit. He gives his full bonuses right away starting on turn 1, but his bonuses are somewhat limited to crit type attacks, so that would be basically like the Hauser ult. If you're using Jericho, he would be a good choice. Other than that, a little bit limited in terms of how much help he's going to be giving you. Okay, if you're having trouble with survivability, I would focus on a sustained subslot rather than a damaged subslot. Like I said at the beginning, the most important thing is being able to do these levels consistently for hours at a time. You don't want to walk away and come back 2 hours later and find that it only ran twice. That is such a waste of time, especially when you have a very limited amount of time, during these events when you can run these levels at half stamina. You really want to maximize it and get as many runs in as you can, or as many as you want to. So as a result, if you're not sure 100% survivability, try one of these units out. Probably the most versatile here is Red Liz Healer, because she can be used on teams of any color and any race. And the way she works is if you get hit, she heals 10% of you the next turn. A little bit more specialized are going to be Arthur, Dogito, however you say his name, Bluegill Thunder, things like these units. These units are going to increase your defense, but they're somewhat specialized and limited in their use. Dogito is only going to increase the defense-related stats of red units. Same thing with Gill Thunder, increasing, I don't think it's defense, I think it's just defense of blue units by 60%. Arthur, if you're running a human team, I would say Arthur would be probably my choice first. He increases all HP related stats by 15%, which also includes a lifesteal. So if you're running humans and you're having survivability, and for whatever reason you don't want to run Red Elizabeth Healer, I would probably use Arthur to get that lifesteal. So as your units do damage, they heal themselves up. Twigo is Twigo. I put him on here because he's Twigo. So, I mean, he actually does increase your HP. That's about, I guess, all I can say for him. And he's Twigo, so, you know, there's that. Alright guys, so this video ended up being a little bit longer than I hoped, but hopefully you've got some good information about this. Just to summarize everything, you know, I would say in between the levels, red is usually the first choice, blue is usually the last choice. Some people are going to say, oh yeah, but I ran blue overnight and I never died. Yeah, that's fine, and there's nothing wrong with running blue. It's typically just not the most consistent to get that 3-turn clear. And what you really want to do is get that 3-turn clear. That's the ultimate in terms of speed. If speed isn't your concern, definitely should not be going for blue. You should be going for green or red. They're a lot safer. If speed is your concern and reliability is your concern, I recommend red for the reasons I already talked about. Green is a good second choice. It may even be better than red if you have a bunch of strong red units and not a lot of the other units that I mentioned in this video. So what do you guys think? Do these farming teams look pretty similar to what you guys are using? Have you all had success using these or different team comps? You know, let us know in the comments down below. Otherwise, thanks for watching and stay tuned for more.